What does on record mean in a real estate transaction? Let's ask Charles Cherney and find out. My name is Charles Cherney. This is the Ask Charles Cherney series, and today's question is, what does it mean when we say in a real estate transaction that it's on record? Well, what it means to say this is that the property has sold. It means that the transaction is recorded at the Registry of Deeds. As a top agent in Cambridge and Somerville, Massachusetts over the last 20 plus years, I can tell you that this status and what it means and when it happens is not always clear to buyers and sellers in a real estate transaction. So when the closing is scheduled, and in the state of Massachusetts, which is an attorney state, look, there's an attorney for the buyer, a buyer's attorney. There's an attorney for the seller, the seller's attorney. There's an attorney for the lender. There's the lender's attorney. So the attorneys need to coordinate the closing, and the closing typically occurs in a law office, and the papers are signed at the closing by the buyer. And if there's a loan, there's additional paperwork to be signed. And in most instances in the Cambridge and Somerville market, the seller will have pre-signed documents and relayed them to their attorney so that the attorney can attend the closing on their behalf. In COVID times, oftentimes the seller's attorney gets all the documents to the buyer's attorney so that essentially the closing table involves the buyer's attorney and the buyer as the last step for signature on documents requiring signature. But however it's organized by the attorneys, there is a closing, and many people assume that if that closing table meeting has completed itself, that the deal is done. But the thing is that you have to record the deed. You have to go on record at the registry to complete the sale. So that's the last step. Now, the registry is open Monday to Friday, and it closes at 4. So you need to schedule the closing earlier in the day, typically, so that someone can send a runner to the registry or record, if that's been prepared, the sale at the registry. So there's some delay between the actual closing table event and the recording of the sale at the Registry of Deeds. Now, where this gets complicated is if for some reason the closing table event is later in the day and the deed is not recorded before the registry is closed, then the closing is essentially, if you will, the recording is delayed until the next day. And if the buyer was planning to move in, they really cannot, because they still do not officially own the property. It's not yet on record. So it's wise to plan to move no sooner than the day after the closing, because you need to allow time for the property to go on record. If you're going to plan to move the same day, make sure you check in with your real estate attorney to get confirmation that the deed has been recorded and the deed has transferred and the sale is complete. Now, for sellers, so the closing attorney cannot record the deed until there's receipt of the funds in compliance with the good funds law. So the closing attorney needs either a certified check or a bank treasurer's check or a cashier's check or a secure wire from the buyer, and then records the deed. And then at that point, once recorded, funds are released to the seller. And so if the seller is expecting a wire, but their own bank has a cutoff time for the wire to be received, the seller may not get their money until the next day. And where that gets tricky is if the seller is in the process of buying another home and needs the money for that purchase. This gets tricky if you're trying to do everything on the same day. So it's much rarer now. It used to be more common to see people trying to buy and sell on the same day. There's just so many things that can delay a closing or a recording that it just puts too much pressure on the equation if you're trying to both buy and move on the same day or buy and sell on the same day. So people now try to space these events out a little bit in time to make sure that everything is in order. But so basically, in summary, on record means sold and recorded at the Registry of Deeds. The sale is complete and there's a record of it recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So the buyer is officially at that point the new owner. the seller at that point can officially receive their funds for the sale of the property. It's interesting, as a top agent over 20 plus years, there have been occasions where the buyer was expecting to close middle of the day around lunchtime, but for some reason, the closing documents weren't ready. And then by the time the attorneys got together and completed the closing at the table, there was no time to get the deed recorded at the registry of deeds. And hence it wasn't recorded until the following morning. And hence the buyer wasn't the new owner until then and had to delay their move-in. And so again, this is why it's better to plan, if you can, to move in no sooner than the day after the scheduled closing. And even then, be prepared for the possibility of delay. Things happen, things come up, and you need to just be patient and prepared for the possibility that going on record could be delayed. Same for sellers and getting your money. If you're getting a wire and your bank has a cutoff, it may be you get your money the following day. So at the end of the day, on record means sold and recorded at the registry. The deal is done, it's sealed, and it's official, and everyone can move on with steps thereafter that are appropriate post going on record, like moving in or getting paid if you're the seller. My name is Charles Cherney. I help buyers buy the right home and sellers sell for the best price in Cambridge and Somerville. Reach out by text, telephone, or email if I can address other questions you have about what it means to be on record or be of service in your search to buy or your sale process to sell. And be sure to subscribe to the channel to learn more about Cambridge and Somerville. Take care.